Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Trekyards. He is Commander Cocking.
He is Captain Foley.
And today, we're going to talk Akira.
Episode 19 of Prodigy. A fleet showed up, and you all thought, of course, Trekyards won't cover any of it. No, all of it. That's what we do. And this one in particular, Stuart, as soon as it flashed on screen, I'm like, I know that one. I know it. I recognise it. I know it. Because I feel like I know this model very well. Stuart, what do you think we're seeing the Akira for the first time? How did it vibe to you, without looking at the comparisons, just how did it vibe as of the fleet?
Felt great seeing it with a fleet, honestly. And as far as I was concerned, it looked pretty spot on for what it should. So I was happy to see it.
Let's compare. This first shot, of course, is a very clear beauty. And this is, of course, the top is Prodigy. The bottom is the ILM model, as seen in Voyager, because, of course, Alex Yeager and such designed a fleet of ships for First Contact in the very late 90s, and then the team built them. Now, if you look at the movie, they look better than the models would lead you to believe, because they just rendered them very nicely. And this was the golden girl of that fleet, and also the one they detailed the most, because it has a close-up, or an equivalent of a close-up. It was then taken by the DS9 team to put in DS9, which was then given to the Voyager team. Both made their own slight tweaks to it, texturing, lighting and such. This is the final version seen in Voyager, because they enhanced the warp grills a bit more. So this is the last version that existed, as seen in Message in a Bottle and Endgame. And for me, when I looked at this, I was like, same model, because I know this model quite well. I can imagine the team at Prodigy saying, well, it was an Industrial Light and Magic model used in a movie. I think it's good if we use it. Like, it's both simple enough to be useful, but also clearly it was good enough for a movie and looked great.
There's a little bit of a difference with the front shuttle bay deal, but the geometry seems a little off in a few spots.
But I have matched angle almost perfectly, which shows how... Because if I was able to match it this closely... Because one of the habits of building models is that obviously there's been two versions made of this. This one and the Eagle Moss model, which quite changed a lot of things. Now, normally you'd pick that one to base yours off of as a new modeler because it's more detailed. They did the work for you, or be given that model. This one's obviously the one from the movie and from the TV show, but when you build a model like this, why would you build it to exactly replicate a 20-something-year-old model? Wouldn't you build it a bit more modern? And so when you're looking at details, look at the small things that are so close, and you're thinking, why did they build them this rustic again?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if they used the actual model, but if you say they probably did, then I believe you for sure. You're the one that uses these quite often, so.
Because a lot of the stuff is textured, so therefore, like the things in front of the bridge module, they just upped the bump map, or maybe raised it as a, because you can turn text into detail sometimes. So there's stuff like that where they can modify it more or less to give a vibe. Other stuff is physically built and looks extremely similar to me.
Yeah, I mean, the United Federation of Planets thing on the banner isn't quite as pronounced, but it looks like it's still there. It's just been toned down quite a bit. The banner on the nacelle, it's more noticeable that there's two lines there, two red lines on the Prodigy version.
I mean, they have motion blur, in fairness, I don't.
Yeah.
So I've gained that bit of extra crispness.
All the windows are lit up. That's one of the problems we had, kind of. It's like not all the windows would be on.
Yeah, it's one of those small tricks that you learn after doing Trek CGI for a bit, is just you make it alternate. You do different on and off. It gives more life. It looks kind of lifeless while being all lit. As weird as that sounds, it looks empty.
Now, you do the same thing with physical model building. When I built my Enterprise C, I had all the windows being black. And my brother suggested maybe you should paint some white. And I did, and it really brings the model to life. Either the lights are all off or they're all on, and this way it's like staggered. It looks like there's stuff going on. So
now, even if they didn't use a model verbatim, I think they at least use it as a super baseline and then just modified it as they needed it. Because how much more canon can you get than the canon model? I mean, that's like all you go from there is up. What I do notice is that all of the windows are done differently in this, or at least the ones on the saucer, and this is the same for the Sovereign as well, to a more obnoxious degree. For whatever reason, every single window is a raised...
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Raised rectangle with a window texture on it. It sort of blends in here, but you can see them. They're more noticeable. Not in the neck, but I'm guessing that's because when they were flat with a saucer, they weren't being noticeable as much in tests because they were too flat. Whereas if you make them raised, they are now separate and you see them. Especially if you want them to go red, you need them to be noticeable. But it does look a bit silly, and certainly it's not right. There isn't a square of hull that goes outside the window frame into space with a window. Like there's just a window. So that is a mistake, a force, a needed mistake that they've done.
And it's actually the Akira too. It's got the same registry number.
I was just about to say, because why would they do that unless they use the model? Because they could pick any registry under the sun. Now it is missing the registry spotlight, but if they're not going to do blinkies or registry spotlight, you could just remove that in 5 seconds. Why have that there if you're going to remove it?
But going to the next picture, we got a shot of that deflector on the bottom, and yeah, very, very, very similar here. Although the way you have you probably say focal length, the way you have yours angled to match the deflector, the bridge is more noticeable on the lower one than on the top one. And this one you got the windows or the whatever on the front there.
Because you can see you don't notice them on the bottom one. They're subtle. You do notice them. That's a really good example of that. But like you can see the nacelle, how basic the nacelle geometry is. It's super basic, but it's probably the real geometry. I see the random cutout lines on both. All the modeler just said, I'm going to build it perfectly, flaws and all, which they might have done, but and yeah, the deflector's a texture. So if they use the deflector, it would be the exact same texture, just overly lit. And I did overlight mine slightly to see if I could replicate the effect, but it is doing a different thing. But I do think it's the same texture. But as you noticed earlier, they have removed the middle shuttle bay entirely, the concept of it, any windows, any whatever. That's fine.
I was going to say, for anybody that doesn't know, we did our Akira episode, that front part is supposed to be a shuttle bay, like a forward-facing shuttle bay. So,
but the next shot, though, is super interesting, because this is when they overlit the model, and it certainly does not look as good as it could do. And it's great, because then the flaws start to potentially come in. Although straight from this, the impulse glows have a slightly different angle to them. Very, very slightly.
Yeah. Why are they yellow impulse glows?
Because they always had a yellow impulse glow.
Huh, okay.
Yeah. But I definitely, because it's easy, you can see on the pylon there's a textured plate and there's a physical. But to make that a physical detail would be very, very quick and would add some instant attention to detail. But some of the lines are so bulky and simple. Yeah, you can see that on they've made a lot of textures into physical. But like even the way the windows curve, if you look on the right hand side on the pontoon, is extremely similar. Just the way it, because those are textured windows, you can see them. Like the way because it'd be very difficult to model something that smooth onto the hull, but texture it would just conform with the vibe.
Mm-hmm. And it's good to see that torpedo bay again too.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And you can even see the detail on the nacelle, same details, but like I said, the texture has now been raised. And there must be a plug-in that just makes it raised, because it's such a small thing to do. But it adds so much detail, readable detail, because of course now you're getting the shadows of those details versus texture, which is flat. Next shot, though, is the worst lit, which means the best for us lit shot of the entire thing. This holds no sins. This one, it doesn't look very good, in my opinion. And the windows look so insanely obnoxious that it really makes the shot look pretty terrible, I think. One of the worst ones of the battle, in my opinion. And
it's not, and the reason he's saying that is not because they're red, it's because they stick out of the hull. As you can see, the bottom one, that's how they should be. So I don't know, it looks like they added something on each window so that they could change the lighting of it. That seems kind of silly. It looks weird.
Yeah, them being raised just changes the vibe. We're being very minutiae here, but we're here to do that. We're comparing the models, so of course, that's the whole point of the show.
And there is a different detail where the strut attaches to that pontoon. The shapes there aren't the same. And yes, they are raised on the Protostar one, but they're different shapes as well. So that's worth pointing out.
Well, there's 2 layers, isn't there? There's the main, there's 2 different plate layers they've kind of extrapolated, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's either the same model with a few raised details, or somebody went to insane detail to make it that basic.
Yeah.
Because it feels as basic as a 25-year-old model with some extra raised pieces. That's a lot of attention to detail there.
Yeah, yeah. Even you can't really see much of the strut in the Prodigy one there, but even the shapes there are different.
Oh, and one thing to note, and you don't notice things until you look this close. If you look at the Voyager version, the US Ninth Federation planets on the bottom is reversed. Because clearly they're being shot from the... And if you remember from Voyager, there is the other angle. And you can often texture something and it'll mirror on itself. You have to make 2 versions of texture to do it and half it to do it. So that was obviously there, making it quicker. And they obviously fixed that for this version. Good for them, because you should. The next shot, though, is again... no sins being held. And this was... I was shocked how close this was, because... I mean, you can see how darkly I lit it to hide the lack of detail. Very, very Discovery-esque, because... there's no detail to hide. But there's a comparison.
Yeah, and that is the photon torpedo launcher, which we did get to see the rotary action. I didn't notice it the first time, but second time I did notice.
It's so pretty.
Rotated into place and fired.
We've been saying that
really cool.
For 6 years now. That's when we first said... because no one's been zoomed this close to this model to notice the side turrets, which are clearly just a mistake of the model. Just... it was easier to do that than be precise. But the idea of having a rotary quick-fire launcher is such an incredible idea. And we saw it in action. So they might have watched our video to know that. Because why the hell would they think to do that? Unless they're the real model or watched our video. There's no other reason to think that. And it doesn't...
so go back and watch that scene, guys. You do see it rotate into place and fire, which is cool. And
it doesn't matter that the tubes are misaligned standard versus the new model. Because, of course, they've moved them. It's part of the story. So they can be disaligned. I do think they probably improved the bridge dome, because that looks a lot smoother. But again, that could take you 20 minutes if you're a good modeler, 10 minutes for a very good modeler. You know, certain things are needed, but they haven't gone that much further really on this.
The windows seem longer, so it looks like they might have changed the window detail. Well, they did because it's raised, right? So
yeah, I mean, yeah, this one's definitely been enhanced more, but they, you know, you would do it for a specific shot. But they kind of enhance it as little as possible. But it's the Canon model, so why need to do anything else? But back to the first picture, Stuart. I felt I was able to replicate the angle so almost close. Even lighting was very close, like the way it shines a little bit. No, very impressive. It looked great in most shots. And bold of them to use a 20-something-year-old model. But you know what? It's the Canon. I'm pretty sure it is, just enhanced. Lovely to see. And it implies we're going to see more ships from other eras, because it could be, you know, quicker to be handed a model and convert it and build a whole new one. And you know you've got the Canon right. So hopefully it means we're going to see even more ships than the many we've seen already, which have been many. So good job, them.
Yeah. So guys, comment down below what you thought about the Akira joining the fleets or being shown. And what did you think about that rotating torpedo turret? Very, very cool. Let us know in the comment section down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, do all the things you need to do, like clicking that bell notification icon to all so you don't miss anything of our content. And you can actually join us for lives where you can help us out in more ways than one.
Like Patreon monthly. Join the channel, also monthly. Support us on any live doing a super chat or any video on a super thanks, or buying a shirt from merch down below in the description. It all helps, it really does, and we rely on it certainly to do what we do here. Because there's a lot of detailed, cool stuff we do on these episodes. And there's more ships, there's more Trekyards. So support us if you can, and thanks in advance.
So until next time, he is Commander Cockings.
He's Captain Foley. Bye, guys.
See you guys later.